Alrighty, so they did the Ragnarok live stream this morning, and it really didn't seem like something that I was going to be super, like, interested in staying up really late and then making a video out of, so I just went to bed, and I'm looking at it now. So, if you haven't already seen it, which if you stay up to this, or like up to date with this kind of stuff, you probably already have, but oh well, I'm doing it for my benefit, really. We are getting a new Deanne and a new Ragnarok character, and they seem pretty interesting. The new Ragnarok character is Brynhildr, Princess Brynhildr. I actually want to see this Deanne animation really quickly. Alright, that's pretty cool. As far as I can tell, she seems like she's going to be a like fist fighter Deanne, but she's a giant. And they do have a couple of those, but from my understanding, it looks like this one is going to be a brand new variant of Deanne, which means she's going to get her own costumes and everything like that, and you're not going to be able to cross costumes with a lot of the earlier Deannes, which is really unfortunate. I don't necessarily like when they do this, but I kind of understand their like character creation, you know, at this point, and how they sort of go about doing that. So I guess it makes sense for this one to be a new one. But it looks like, I think these are the associated units, if I'm not mistaken. They do have, at this point, because I am late, I do have the benefit of going over a lot of the translated stuff because of Grand Cross database, which is really nice. But I think these are the two associated units. It looks like you can use either Goddess Liz or Base Merlin, which is kind of interesting. And then this is like pretty much strictly a PvP unit, which is, I guess, a good counterbalance because Brynhildr is basically, you can't use her in PvP or deathmatch. I think she's literally just a PvE unit, which is cool for me. I do like new PvE units. I guess the gear that they're recommending is either HP defense or attack defense, I guess, is depending on how offensive or defensive you want to be with the character. Let's look at Brynhildr really quickly, and then we'll look at the patch notes instead. I'm not really super interested in seeing their PvP showcase because honestly, the JP and Korean devs don't seem to really know how to use a lot of the characters that they develop, which is a little unfortunate. That looks really cool though. I do like her design a lot. She's really neat looking. So there's her skills and everything like that, and it looks like she'll have a whole set of costumes. Maybe this isn't associated units, maybe it's who you want to partner the unit with, I guess. I'm not completely sure on that. We'll have to look at the characters and see if he comments on that at all, but they suggest attack defense or HP defense as well for this character. I've looked at the skills for both of the characters so far. Brynhildr seems like she's going to be more of a supporty style unit from my understanding, but Grand Cross database has dubbed this the simp update. I'm pretty sure Nagato actually makes these banners for him, so that's actually pretty funny considering it's literally just two female characters. Deanne is a huge like fan favorite. I personally do like Deanne quite a bit, so I'm looking forward to this character. And Brynhildr honestly is, you know, she looks great. So yeah, let's go over the update a little bit so I can kind of get a feel for what's coming. So obviously we're getting a new Ragnarok chapter, which is really cool because I'm pretty into the Ragnarok stuff so far. I think that it's really cool and really like original and something that you can kind of look forward to. Whereas if you've already watched the anime or read the manga or anything like that, you kind of know what's coming as far as the story chapters go, but there's a lot of free rewards in both, so that's kind of nice. So let's look at Brynhildr's skills and stuff really quickly. I don't know why this one's smaller than the other one, but yeah, her passive, she is a green unit. Her passive, and she's a human actually, which is interesting, but her passive is increases the hero's basic stats by 12% for every alive ally in battle, which 12% is a lot. I mean, I know that Green Arthur has sort of a similar thing going on where if everybody's alive, he gains, I think it's 35% more damage dealt or something like that, like everybody does, which is pretty good. So you might be able to partner her with Arthur and make like an interesting team. But increases the hero's all stats by 8% when an ally dies, applies when entering the battle, excludes PvP and deathmatch. So it's PvE only, which is probably a reason for a lot of people to probably skip this unit. I completely understand. But she does seem pretty good. Like, she does seem very interesting for PvE stuff, and her skills are pretty interesting too. She does detonate damage with one skill. I don't know why they're so hung up on putting like every new unit gets a detonate skill. Like, they are good, like, don't get me wrong, but like detonate's been in the game for a really long time, and there was only a handful of detonate skills, and it's like all of a sudden they understand that the potential for it is insane, so they're just throwing it on everybody. But yeah, it's a single target detonate skill, which does, I mean, 400% damage is really good, plus the additional detonate damage is going to be pretty insane if you're going against, maybe you're fighting like a PvE event that has a lot of ultimate gauge, like orbs or anything like that. You know, you'll be able to do pretty good damage with that. And then the other skill is a power strike skill, which I think I just went over this the other day. Power strike, if I'm not mistaken, is the one where it ignores resistance, which is pretty strong. So that's kind of like the skill that Sariel has. So I'm assuming you could probably get her to hit relatively hard. So her ult is also very interesting, which is why I kind of suggest that she's probably a little bit more supporty. And it is inflicts damage equal to 490% of attack on one enemy and restores the HP of all allies by 30% of the damage dealt. And then at max, it deals 735% of attack and heals 80%. So I guess you would kind of like rush ult and keep your allies alive by using her ultimate, which I think is really interesting. Which honestly, I guess she might not be as supporty as I initially thought. Both of these skills could potentially hit really, really hard, so I think an attack defense set would probably be a lot more beneficial on her. Because obviously the more damage you deal to the enemy, the more your allies are going to heal as well. So maybe she's a little bit more offensive than I originally intended, or originally anticipated. But yeah, let's look at the DN really quickly. So she's pretty much going to counter Bon and Margaret. Probably a little bit less on Bon because she is a green unit, so she's got type disadvantage. But she's pretty interesting. She is a giant. In PvP, removes up to 3 buffs and debuffs on the enemy when the hero uses a skill. For each buff or debuff removed by this effect, increases damage dealt by 40%, applies before skill activation. So if you're using like a gold card per se, and you're hitting for 500% damage, it's going to increase the damage on that by potentially, 120%, which is pretty crazy. Like, that's a lot of damage if you're going against like a Bon or somebody and they have his two buffs on and you hit, you could potentially deal a lot of damage with that. Or if you're going against a Margaret, obviously she puts on quite a few buffs, so you could remove some buffs from her and then hit, and it will deal a lot of damage. So I think that that's pretty strong. I honestly don't know if her, this is a pretty strong passive, but I don't know if her kit is going to be enough to really bring it together and hold its own in the meta. I'm kind of glad that this is a unit that the JP side is going to get first, and they can test out and see whether or not it's actually effective or not. I think that she has a lot of potential, but on paper, to me, it doesn't sound like she's going to be like quite enough to really hold her own, because I think it'll be somewhat easy to get rid of her in my personal opinion, but we'll have to kind of like look at it and see whenever she drops. But her skills are, this is kind of like a Green Escanor's skill where on level 2 and 3, you're going to fill your ultimate move gauge up by doing damage, and it does 500% on one enemy, which is pretty good. Like, that's a pretty high multiplier, and I mean, if you partner that with her passive, she could probably hit for, thousands and thousands and thousands of damage. And the other one is inflicts damage equal to 360% of attack on one enemy and disables attack skills for 2 turns. So this, I'm assuming this one's kind of like Red Gother's attack skill, but it's going to be a single target instead, which is kind of cool. I do like attack seal, but the modifier on it's pretty low, so I don't know if the damage is going to be really made up by the passive or not, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that one. And then the ultimate is increases all allies damage dealt by 7% for 2 turns, inflicts damage equal to 500% of attack on all enemies, and then at level 6, it's going to increase all allies damage dealt by 42% for 2 turns, inflicts damage equal to 750% of attack on all enemies. That's honestly insane. The fact that they're like releasing so many units that buff damage dealt it's really interesting, but it's just making it to where newer units are just going to have to be that much stronger. Like, they're going to have that much more HP to survive a hit like that, or they're just going to have some sort of crazy buff that will decrease damage dealt, kind of like Margaret does. So I really don't know how to feel about that one, to be honest. Like, I think at some point the meta, you're not going to be able to use any of the old units in meta at all. And like, I mean, it's already kind of like that because of a lot of new units, but it just seems like they're pushing further into it, and it's just, I don't know how it's going to end up turning out for a lot of, units getting phased out. But obviously they're the 2 new units. The banner seems okay, not really good, but they do add like a couple of units, like a handful of units that are worth getting. So it's Coin Shop Merlin, which is green Merlin, Coin Shop Deanne, which is the old blue Deanne, Reverse Ellie-Hawk. I don't know which one specifically that is. I'm assuming it's the blue Ellie-Hawk. Death Pierce is on the banner, Deldry, Zaratros, I think it's red Ice Jericho. I don't necessarily think she's all that great. Archangel Ludociel on here, Chandler, Excalibur, Arthur. I would say that those 3 are probably your best bets. And then 10 Commandments Droll, which I think is the blue Droll. Actually, that might be the green Droll. I'm not too sure on that one. Monspeed and Feraldrin. So honestly, the banner's kind of meh. It has 3 additional units that are halfway like good, they're worth pulling. But yeah, it's a 600 pity, and then you can choose between Deanne and Brynhildr once you get to that point. So I honestly don't know how to feel. I think personally I may end up skipping on Cusack's banner just because he's really not all that cool, and I think I'll try to summon on this because I do like her as a PvE unit. Like, I think that's really, really cool, and the new Deanne does seem really interesting. But honestly, I think I'm not going to set anything in stone yet. I'm going to try to wait and see how they end up looking on JP and everything like that before they hit global, and sort of try to make a decision before then. So yeah, her new costumes are kind of neat. I'm not a huge fan of any of them specifically. This SSR one's kind of cool, but I'm more into like the armor style that she has on her default look than I am the rest of these, to be honest. And then it looks like Deanne is going to be getting these 2 costumes right here. The fact that she doesn't have an SSR costume leads me to believe that they're probably going to give it out for free through an event or something like that. That's normally what they end up doing whenever they don't release 3 costumes for a new character. But honestly, this outfit does seem kind of cool. I don't know why, like, I'm attracted to this one specifically, but I guess it's just like maybe the bright, vibrant yellow colors and stuff like that. They're kind of cool. There is a roulette event where you can grab a couple of different rewards. There's some card packs and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. Diamond spending event, so if you spend 600 diamonds and go through a full rotation, you get reimbursed by a couple of items, which is interesting. And it looks like they're going to be trying to implement the Holy Relic system, which is pretty cool because we went over it a little bit in the dev notes, and I think it's an interesting sort of game mode, or like game mode. It's an interesting like concept that they've come up with. I can't remember exactly what the whole deal with it is. Basically, it's like an item that you can use to buff stats on a specific type of character, not that entire character itself. So Purgatory Bond is going to be the only one benefiting from Purgatory Bond's artifact, like or his relic, not the rest of the bonds. So it's anyone that uses the Purgatory Bond tag or uses the same outfits or anything like that. So it looks like he's going to be getting a relic, which is interesting. Undead Brawler Bond is also going to be getting a relic, which is, I guess, good because I think Brawler Bond is the fisticuffs Bond, like not the nunchuck Bond, which is interesting. And then Adventurer Bond is the nunchuck Bond, so it looks like all of the Bonds are going to get a relic, which is interesting. Awakened Lilia is going to be getting one. Mage Lilia is going to be getting one. Twiggo, Jillian, and Alioni. So that's pretty interesting. I'm almost surprised that they didn't throw Arthur into it as well, just so that way you could buff the Purgatory Bond team completely. But Purgatory Bond getting one and Twiggo getting one could be good support for them. I don't necessarily know yet if the stats or anything like that boost in PvP. I'm assuming they're going to. I was saying in the dev notes that with them adding stuff like this, I really hope it doesn't end up getting like super out of hand and it gets super tedious to try to maximize your potential for each character. Like, I understand like it's more stuff for you to do in the game, which will keep you on the game longer and stuff like that, but at a certain point, just trying to max out one new character, like if one character comes out and they're like, oh hey, we're gonna go ahead and release the relic for them, and so you have to not only power them all the way up to level 90, which means you have to get the materials for it, and you have to super awaken them and all of this stuff, and then you have to go for their relic and etc, etc. Like at some point it's gonna get way too much, and I don't know, it's just gonna get to the point where people aren't gonna want to spend like 1,000 resources just to get one character maxed out, which is, I don't know, kind of a concern to me. But anyway, you will have to farm for the required mat in the new demonic beast battle. So it looks like we're getting demonic beast battles already, which is interesting. Yeah, demonic beast battles are next. You can go to Creature's Nest, which is interesting, and it looks like you fight the griffin looking enemy, and I guess you just set a team and farm the stage. Player will form a party of 4 and advance in the tower. The registered stats on the unit will not change after the lock-in. The battle resets every Monday. So that is pretty interesting. That's the end of the notes, honestly, but I think that's a pretty interesting thing. They're adding a new game mode, they're adding 2 new characters, a new story chapter for Ragnarok. I think it's looking like a pretty solid update. I think that it's going to be about a month before we get this one on global, so just, I guess, take into account any of these characters if you're looking forward to them. Maybe save some of your gems and everything like that, but it looks pretty cool to me. That's pretty much all I have to go over, though. I kind of look forward to seeing how this game mode sort of plays out and how it works, and yeah, I kind of want to see how the Holy Relic system also works on each character, and I look forward to seeing Deanne in combat. So that's pretty much it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know a lot of this probably has already been gone over. You've probably already seen it, but it is what it is. I can't stay up 24 hours a day. See ya.